The Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there lived a little girl named Little Red Riding Hood. She went by this name because she always wore a red cloak with a red hood. She lived in a cottage in the forest with her mother and father, who was a woodcutter. In another cottage, a little distance away, lived her grandmother all by herself. One day the grandmother fell ill, and Little Red Riding Hood's mother baked, for her, a cake and some other goodies. Little Red Riding Hood's mother told her to go to her grandmother's cottage and give her the basket of goodies. Little Red Riding Hood, who was very fond of her grandmother, agreed at once. Her mother advised her not to talk to anyone on the way, especially the big bad wolf. So Little Red Riding Hood took the basket and hopped along the path that led to her grandmother's house. She hadn't gone very far when she met a wolf. The cunning wolf went up to Little Red Riding Hood and pretended to be very friendly. He bid her a good morning and then asked her where she was going and what was in the basket. Little Red Riding Hood, suspecting nothing, told the wolf that she was going to see her grandmother, and that she was taking her fresh cake and some other goodies. The sly wolf thought that he could eat up Red Riding Hood and her grandmother at once, if he laid out his plans properly. He said goodbye to Little Red Riding Hood, but he took another shorter and faster route to the little girl's grandmother's house. He knocked at the door and the old lady asked who was there. The wolf put on a false voice and said that he was Little Red Riding Hood and that he had brought cakes and goodies for her. The old lady, suspecting nothing, told the wolf to come in. As the wolf entered into the cottage, he pounced on the old lady and swallowed her down. Then he wore her nightgown, put on her nightcap. He also wore a pair of grandmother's spare glasses. Then he jumped onto the bed and waited for Red Riding Hood to arrive. Little Red Riding Hood, knowing nothing of the wolf's plan, trotted along the path, picking up flowers for her grandmother and humming to herself. She reached her grandmother's house and knocked on the door. The wolf answered and told her to come in. Little Red Riding Hood hopped in and laid the basket on the bedside table. He looked at her grandmother and thought that her grandmother looked very different. Finally she said, "Why, grandmother, what strong arms you have," said Red Riding Hood. The wolf replied, "All the better to hug you with." "Why, grandmother, what big ears you have," said the little girl. "All the better to hear you with," replied the cunning wolf. "Why, grandmother, what big teeth you have," gasped Red Riding Hood. The wolf sprang, saying, "All the better to eat you with." Poor Little Red Riding Hood screamed at the top of the voice. She somehow managed to escape from the bedroom and dashed down the stairs, with the hungry wolf close at her heels. Now, Red Riding Hood's father, who was chopping wood in the nearby forest, heard the screaming coming from the cottage. He grabbed his axe and quickly ran to the cottage, just on time to save Red Riding Hood from the clutches of the big bad wolf. Red Riding Hood was saved, and oh, what a surprise! There was grandmother climbing out of the wolf's dead body. So they went back into the cottage and unpacked the basket of goodies. Little Red Riding Hood never went wandering into the forest again, and old grandmother took great care to lock her cottage door. The end. Thank you for listening to the stories at ZynKids.com.